My name is Anthony Williams, and at 67 years old, I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I lost my wife, raised my son Ryan alone, and poured every ounce of love into making sure he had a good life. When he told me he was getting married, I was overjoyed. Then, the day before his wedding, his fiancée Jessica visited me. Looking me straight in the eyes, she said words I will never forget. The best gift for our wedding would be if you disappeared from our family. What happened next changed everything. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? Hit that subscribe button if you want to know what I left in that empty house that shocked them both to their core. I started my construction business with nothing but a second-hand truck and my toolbox. For 35 years, I built it from the ground up, pouring concrete foundations in freezing winters and setting roof trusses under scorching summer suns. It was hard work, but honest work. I never got rich, but I built a good life for my family. Maria, my wife, was the love of my life. We met in high school, married young, and promised each other forever. We had Ryan when I was 30, and those first 8 years as a family were the happiest of my life. Then Maria got sick, pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months. She fought for 18, but in the end, cancer took her anyway. There I was, a 38-year-old widower with an 8-year-old son who kept asking when Mommy was coming home. Those first nights after the funeral, I would sit on the edge of my bed staring at her pillow, not knowing how I was going to raise our boy alone. But I made a promise to Maria before she passed. I promised her I would make sure Ryan had everything he needed to thrive. I turned down bigger contracts that would have taken me away from home. I learned to cook, though those first few years involved a lot of burnt dinners and pizza delivery. I never missed a parent-teacher conference or baseball game. When Ryan needed braces, I took extra weekend work. When he wanted to go to architecture school, I remortgaged our house to help pay tuition. Watching Ryan graduate with honors made every sacrifice worth it. He got hired by a prestigious firm in the city, and I swelled with pride watching him build his career. My boy had become a man, a successful one, and he had his mother's kind eyes and creative spirit. When Ryan first mentioned Jessica, his voice changed. There was an excitement I hadn't heard before. He met her at a charity event his firm was sponsoring. She worked in luxury real estate, came from money, and had connections throughout the city. After 6 months of dating, he brought her home for dinner. Jessica was beautiful, no doubt about that. Tall, blonde, always dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. When she first walked into our modest home, I saw her eyes sweep across the living room, taking in the well-worn furniture and family photos. But then she smiled warmly, complimented the pot roast I spent all day cooking, and asked thoughtful questions about Ryan as a child. "Your son is amazing, Mr. Williams," she said. "You must be so proud of how you raised him." I was charmed. Who wouldn't be? When Ryan called 3 months later to tell me they were engaged, I was thrilled for him. "Dad, I found her," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "The one I want to spend my life with." I threw them an engagement dinner at the best restaurant I could afford. Watching them together, how she touched his arm when she laughed, how his eyes never left her face, I thought my son had found the happiness his mother and I once shared. When they started looking at houses, I knew what I wanted to do. I had been saving for retirement for years, but what better use for that money than helping my son start his married life on solid ground? "I want to help with the down payment," I told Ryan over lunch one day. "I have $60,000 saved up. It should be enough for a decent starter home." Ryan protested at first, but eventually accepted. With my savings and their combined incomes, they found a beautiful 2-story colonial in a nice neighborhood. The house needed some work, but that's where I could help too. For 6 months before the wedding, I spent weekends renovating their kitchen, refinishing hardwood floors, and building custom shelves in the living room. Jessica seemed appreciative, bringing me iced tea and complimenting my craftsmanship. But looking back, I realized she never thanked me directly for the down payment. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. As the wedding approached, I noticed subtle changes. Jessica began making all the decisions. When I suggested a venue that had meaning to our family, where Maria and I had celebrated our 20th anniversary shortly before she got sick, Jessica smiled tightly. "That's sweet, Anthony, but we're looking at the Grand Harbor Hotel. It's where all the important weddings in the city happen." The Grand Harbor was far beyond what I could comfortably afford, but when I saw Ryan's excitement, I agreed to cover it. "Whatever makes you two happy," I said. When Jessica's parents flew in from California to meet me, I cleaned my house for 3 days straight. Harold and Patricia Blackwood lived in a mansion in Malibu and had made their fortune in tech investments. They were polite but distant, asking few questions about me or my life. Patricia looked at my family photos with a thin smile. "So charming that you've kept this little house all these years," she said, making it sound like I lived in a museum exhibit rather than a home. I brushed it off. They were just different from me, from a different world. What mattered was that Ryan was happy. But as the wedding day grew closer, I found myself increasingly pushed to the sidelines. My calls to Ryan went straight to voicemail. My offers to help were politely declined, and Jessica, when Ryan wasn't around, stopped pretending. The first clear sign of trouble came 3 months before the wedding. I had picked up some extra work to help pay for the open bar reception Jessica wanted. After a long day on a job site, I stopped by their house unannounced with a housewarming gift, a handmade coffee table I had crafted from reclaimed wood. Jessica answered the door in yoga pants, her expression shifting from expectation to disappointment when she saw me. "Oh, Anthony, Ryan isn't home. He's working late." "That's okay," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "I brought something for the house." Her eyes landed on the coffee table I was struggling to hold. "Oh, that's rustic," she said, the word sounding like an insult. "We actually just ordered a glass and chrome coffee table from a designer in New York. But you can bring it in. I guess we could put it in the guest room or something." That night, I placed the table in their living room anyway, hoping Ryan would appreciate the hours of work I had put into it. A week later, when I visited again, the table was gone. Ryan sheepishly told me Jessica thought it clashed with her vision for the space. Then came the wedding planning meetings. Jessica had hired an expensive planner, a sharp-featured woman named Tara, who seemed to view me as an inconvenience. "We're keeping the father of the groom duties simple," she explained during our first meeting. "You'll wear the tux we select, walk down the aisle alone, and give a short toast at the reception. Very short. Under 2 minutes, preferably." "Don't I get to dance with the bride?" I asked, remembering how I had looked forward to that tradition. Jessica and Tara exchanged glances. "We're actually doing a choreographed first dance," Jessica explained. "It's going to be Ryan and me, then my parents will join, then the wedding party. It's all been planned with the dance instructor." "I see," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. "What about the rehearsal dinner?" "Traditionally, the groom's family hosts that. My parents are handling it," Jessica said quickly. "They've booked a private room at Luciano's. It's all taken care of." I nodded, feeling increasingly invisible. Later that night, I called Ryan to talk about it. "Son, I feel like I'm being pushed out of your wedding planning. I want to contribute more than just money." There was a long pause before Ryan answered. "Dad, I appreciate everything you're doing. But Jessica has dreamed about this day since she was little. Her parents are well connected, and they know how these things should be done. Can you just trust us on this?" I backed off, not wanting to cause problems. But the incidents kept piling up. Jessica forgot to include me in the engagement photos. I was seated at a back table for the engagement party, far from Ryan and the Blackwoods. When family members asked why I wasn't more involved, Jessica would wrap an arm around my shoulder and say, "Anthony has done so much already, raising Ryan alone. It's time for him to relax and enjoy being the father of the groom." It sounded generous to outsiders, but I recognized the subtle dismissal. At a tasting for the wedding cake, Jessica's mother commented on my table manners. "In our circle," she said, leaning toward me conspiratorially, "we use the smaller fork for the appetizer course." She slid the dessert fork toward me with a practiced smile. I had worked with my hands all my life, built houses that would stand for generations, raised a son to be proud of. But in their world, I was just a classless contractor who used the wrong fork. The worst moment came during the engagement party. Jessica's father was giving a toast, talking about how thrilled they were to welcome Ryan into their family. "He's the son we never had," Harold proclaimed, raising his glass. "Driven, educated, and with the good taste to fall in love with our Jessica." I stood in the corner, invisible, as Harold continued. "And while we're acknowledging family, let's thank Anthony for his contribution. I understand he helped with some renovations on the house?" Laughter rippled through the crowd of Jessica's friends and family. My $60,000 down payment reduced to some renovations, as if I had merely tightened a few cabinet hinges. After the party, I pulled Ryan aside, trying one more time to express my concerns. "Son, I feel like Jessica and her family look down on me. Like I'm not good enough to be part of your new life." Ryan's face flushed. "Dad, they're just different from us. They have certain expectations about how things should be done. Jessica is under a lot of stress planning this wedding. Can you just try a little harder to fit in?" For me, I backed down again, telling myself things would improve after the wedding. Once the pressure of planning was over, we would find a new normal. Jessica was just stressed. Ryan was just trying to please his new family. Things would get better. They didn't. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received an email from Tara with the final schedule. My role had been reduced even further. I wasn't mentioned in the program except as father of the groom. My toast had been cut entirely due to time constraints. I called Ryan immediately, but Jessica answered his phone. "Oh, Anthony," she said, her voice artificially bright. "Ryan's in the shower. Is everything okay?" "No, everything is not okay," I said, my patience finally wearing thin. "I just got the final wedding schedule, and I've been practically written out of the ceremony." There was a pause, and when Jessica spoke again, her voice had lost its artificial warmth. "Anthony, I think you're overreacting. This day is about Ryan and me, not about you. We've tried to include you where appropriate, but frankly, some of your ideas are a bit dated." "Dated?" I repeated. "Like father-son photos? Like wanting to give a toast to my only child on his wedding day?" "Ryan agrees with me on the schedule," she said firmly. "If you have a problem with it, you're creating a problem with him too. Is that what you want right before our wedding?" I ended the call without answering, a knot forming in my stomach. Was Ryan really on board with this, or was Jessica speaking for him? We had always been close, but over the past year, I had watched my son become increasingly distant, increasingly under Jessica's influence. That night, I sat in my quiet house, looking at old photos of Ryan and me. Fishing trips, graduation, the day he got his first architectural job. Where had that boy gone? And more importantly, was I willing to be treated like an embarrassing accessory in his new life just to keep the peace? For the first time, I began to wonder if I should stand up for myself, even if it meant risking my relationship with my son. Little did I know, Jessica was about to make that decision much easier. The day before the wedding arrived with a flurry of activity. I had taken the day off work to prepare for the rehearsal dinner that evening. Though Jessica's parents had taken over hosting duties, I was determined to be present and positive. I had picked up my tuxedo, gotten a haircut, and even bought a new pair of dress shoes that pinched my feet but looked appropriate. Around 2 in the afternoon, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Jessica stood on my porch alone, dressed in an expensive-looking white pantsuit, her engagement ring catching the sunlight. "Jessica," I said, surprised, "is everything all right? Where's Ryan?" "He's finalizing some details with the venue," she said, her voice cool and controlled. "May I come in? We need to talk before tonight." I stepped aside, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Jessica had never visited my home alone before. She walked into my living room, declining my offer of coffee or water, and took a seat on the edge of my couch, looking around with barely disguised distaste. "Anthony," she began, folding her hands in her lap. I want to discuss your role in our lives after tomorrow. My role? I repeated, confused. You mean as Ryan's father? Jessica gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yes, but more specifically, how that role will change. Ryan and I are starting our own family now. We'll be moving in different social and professional circles. The truth is, Anthony, you don't really fit into the life we're building. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. What exactly are you saying? Jessica sighed, as if explaining something to a child. I'm saying that after the wedding, we think it would be best if you kept your distance. No dropping by, unannounced. No weekly dinners. No holidays together. Ryan needs to establish himself as head of his own household, not as your son. I struggled to find words. Have you discussed this with Ryan? Does he agree with this? Of course he does, she said smoothly. He's just too kind to tell you himself. He doesn't want to hurt your feelings, but he agrees that your background and mannerisms don't really align with our future plans. My father is helping Ryan make connections with people who can advance his career. Having a blue-collar father who uses the wrong fork and tells inappropriate jokes doesn't help his image. The room seemed to spin around me. Inappropriate jokes? I've never. Jessica waved her hand dismissively. The point is, Anthony, if you really love your son and want what's best for him, you'll step back. In fact, she leaned forward, her voice dropping. The greatest gift you could give us for our wedding is if you simply disappeared from our family. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and final. I felt a cold shock spreading through my body. You can't be serious, I managed to say. I'm entirely serious, Jessica replied. Ryan will never reach his full potential with you hanging around, reminding everyone of his humble origins. We appreciate the financial contribution you've made to the wedding and the house, but now it's time for you to bow out gracefully. Something in me broke at that moment. This woman, who I had welcomed into my family, who was benefiting from my life savings and years of hard work, was telling me I wasn't good enough to be part of my own son's life. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Jessica stood, adjusting her designer purse on her shoulder. I'm glad we had this talk. I trust you'll do the right thing for Ryan. We'll see you at the rehearsal tonight, but remember what I said. After tomorrow, we'd prefer limited contact. After she left, I sat in stunned silence for nearly an hour. Then I picked up my phone and called Ryan. When he answered, his voice was hurried, distracted. Dad, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of something with the venue coordinator. No, Ryan, this can't wait, I said firmly. Jessica just came to see me. She told me that after the wedding, you both want me to disappear from your lives. Is that true? There was a long pause. In that silence, I heard everything I needed to know. Dad, Ryan finally said, his voice uncomfortable. Jessica sometimes expresses things strongly. What she probably meant was that we need some space to establish ourselves as a couple. We can talk about this after the honeymoon, okay? No, it's not okay, I replied, my voice breaking. Your fiancé just told me I'm an embarrassment to you, that I don't fit into your new life, and you're not even denying it. Dad, please. Ryan sounded frustrated now. I'm literally standing with the wedding coordinator. Can we please discuss this tomorrow? Tomorrow you're getting married, I reminded him. When exactly were you planning to tell me that I'm being cut out of your life? During the father-son dance. Oh wait, I'm not even included in that. You're overreacting, Ryan said, echoing Jessica's earlier words. Look, I have to go. We'll talk at the rehearsal tonight. The call ended, and I sat there holding my phone, feeling like the world I had built was crumbling around me. My son hadn't defended me. He hadn't expressed shock at Jessica's words. He had deflected and minimized, making it clear where his priorities lay. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Jessica over and over. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made for Ryan, all the love I had given him. Was this really how it ended? Was I supposed to quietly accept being pushed aside, treated like an embarrassing old relative to be tolerated at obligatory holidays? Around 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I would not be a victim in this story. I would not beg for scraps of attention from my son and his new wife. If they wanted me gone, I would go, but on my terms. With new resolve, I got out of bed and went to my office. I pulled out the folder containing all the wedding and house documents. What Jessica and Ryan seemed to have forgotten was that my name was on everything. I had paid the deposits for the venue, flowers, and catering on my credit card. And more importantly, since I had contributed the entire down payment for the house, the deed was still in my name until after the wedding, when it was supposed to be transferred to them as a final gift. By dawn, I had formulated a plan. I wouldn't cause a scene or confront them publicly. I would simply take Jessica at her word. She had asked me to disappear from their family, and that's exactly what I would do. But first, I had some arrangements to make. I called Thomas Brennan, my attorney and longtime friend. "Thomas," I said when he answered, "I need to see you first thing this morning. It's urgent." Thomas had been my friend since high school. He went to law school while I started my construction business, and over the years we had helped each other through divorces, deaths, and business problems. When I arrived at his office at 8 that morning, he took one look at my face and closed his door. "What happened?" he asked, pouring me a cup of coffee. I told him everything, from Jessica's gradual campaign to isolate me to the final devastating conversation. Thomas listened without interrupting, his expression darkening. "And Ryan?" he asked when I finished. "He's going along with this?" "He didn't deny it," I said, the pain still fresh. "He wanted to talk about it after the honeymoon." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "So what do you want to do?" "I want to take back what's mine," I replied. "And then I want to disappear, just like she asked." We spent the next 2 hours reviewing documents. The situation was clearer than I thought. Since I had paid all the wedding deposits, I could cancel them without Ryan's input. And the house situation was even more straightforward. "You provided the entire down payment," Thomas confirmed, reviewing the paperwork. "And since the title transfer to their names was scheduled for after the wedding as a gift, you're still the legal owner. You have every right to sell it." "Can I do it quickly?" I asked. Thomas nodded. "I have a client, a developer looking for properties in that neighborhood. He might take it as is, for cash, with a quick closing. But Anthony, are you sure about this? It will change your relationship with Ryan forever." I thought about Jessica's cold eyes as she told me I didn't belong in their lives. I thought about Ryan's dismissive tone on the phone. "The relationship has already changed," I said quietly. "I'm just acknowledging the reality they created." Thomas made some calls. By noon, he had arranged for his developer client to see the house that afternoon. By 2, I had canceled all the wedding arrangements, from the Grand Harbor Hotel to the 10-tier cake Jessica had insisted on. I called my credit card company and explained the situation, and they agreed to process the refunds. Next, I drove to Ryan and Jessica's house, using my key to enter. They were both out, probably dealing with last-minute wedding details. I looked around at the home I had helped create, from the kitchen I had renovated to the custom shelving I had built. So many hours of labor, given freely out of love. I went room to room, collecting the few personal items I had left there. Photos of Ryan and me that Jessica had relegated to the guest room. Tools I had stored in the garage. The last birthday gift Ryan had given me before meeting Jessica, a leather tool belt with my name engraved on it. As I worked, I thought about what I wanted to leave behind. Not just physical items, but a message. Not out of spite, but out of truth. I went to the small desk in the guest room and began to write. By 4 o'clock, Thomas called to tell me the developer had made an offer on the house, well below market value, but all cash with a 24-hour closing. I accepted immediately. "The money will be in your account by this time tomorrow," Thomas said. "But Anthony, Ryan's going to call you any minute when he finds out about the wedding. What are you going to tell him?" "The truth," I replied. "That I'm respecting Jessica's wishes." As if on cue, my phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. "Dad!" he shouted when I answered. "What the hell is going on? The venue just called and said everything's been canceled. They said you canceled it." "That's right," I confirmed, my voice steady. "I did." "Are you out of your mind?" Ryan was nearly screaming now. "The wedding is tomorrow. 200 people are coming." "I'm sorry for the guests," I said sincerely. "But this is what Jessica wanted." "What are you talking about?" He sounded genuinely confused. "Jessica came to see me yesterday," I reminded him. "She told me the greatest gift I could give you both would be to disappear from your family. I'm just respecting her wishes." There was a moment of stunned silence. "By canceling our wedding?" Ryan finally sputtered. "That's just the beginning," I continued. "I've also sold the house. The new owners will be contacting you about when you need to vacate." "You what?" Ryan's voice had gone up an octave. "You can't sell our house. We live there." "Actually, I can. The deed is in my name. The $60,000 down payment was mine. The house was going to be transferred to your names after the wedding as a gift. But since Jessica doesn't want me in your life, I assume she doesn't want my gifts either." I could hear Ryan breathing heavily on the other end of the line. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, controlled. "Dad, I don't know what Jessica said to you exactly, but this is insane. You can't just cancel our wedding and sell our house." "I already have," I replied simply. "The developer is paying cash. The deal closes tomorrow. We'll be there in 20 minutes, Ryan snapped and hung up. I took a deep breath and looked around the empty living room one more time. On the mantel, I placed the letter I had written, along with a small wooden box. Then I left, locking the door behind me one last time. I drove back to my house and waited. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, I heard a car screech into my driveway. Ryan and Jessica burst through my front door without knocking, both of them red-faced and frantic. "How could you do this?" Ryan demanded. "Cancel the wedding? Sell our house? Have you lost your mind?" Jessica was right behind him, her perfect composure finally cracked. "This is sabotage. We'll sue you." I remained calm, sitting in my armchair. "Please, come in," I said mildly. "Don't be cute," Ryan snapped. "Fix this right now." "I can't," I replied. "The wedding cancellations are final. The deposits will be refunded to my credit card, and the house sale closes tomorrow. It's done." "Why?" Ryan's voice broke. "Why would you destroy the most important day of my life?" I looked at Jessica, who was uncharacteristically silent. "Why don't you ask your fiancé what she said to me yesterday?" Jessica immediately went on the offensive. "I just told him we needed some space after the wedding. That's normal for newlyweds." "That's not what you said," I corrected her. "You said, and I quote, 'The greatest gift you could give us for our wedding is if you simply disappeared from our family.' You told me I was an embarrassment, that I didn't fit into your social circles, that my background and mannerisms were holding Ryan back." Ryan turned to Jessica, confusion written across his face. "Is that true? Did you say that to my father?" Jessica's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing. "I didn't phrase it like that. Your father is twisting my words because he's jealous of our relationship. He can't stand that you're making a life without him controlling everything." "I recorded our conversation," I said quietly. Both of them froze. "You what?" Jessica whispered. I pulled out my phone. After months of being subtly pushed aside, I started recording conversations with both of you. Call it a contractor's habit, documenting everything. "Would you like to hear what you actually said to me yesterday, Jessica?" Without waiting for an answer, I pressed play. Jessica's clear, cold voice filled the room. "The greatest gift you could give us for our wedding is if you simply disappeared from our family." Ryan's face drained of color as the recording continued, capturing every dismissive, cruel word Jessica had spoken. When it finished, the room was silent, except for the sound of Ryan's ragged breathing. "Ryan," Jessica began, her voice suddenly soft and wounded. "You have to understand, I was just trying to make sure we had healthy boundaries. Your father is very clingy. I was just looking out for our future." Ryan stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You told my father he was an embarrassment," he said slowly, "that he didn't belong in our lives. She's been systematically pushing me away for months," I added. "The engagement party, the wedding planning, changing the rehearsal dinner traditions, removing me from the ceremony as much as possible. Ask yourself, Ryan, when did you stop calling me? When did our Sunday dinners end? It wasn't your idea, was it?" Ryan sank down onto my couch, looking shell-shocked. Jessica immediately sat beside him, placing her hand on his arm. "Baby, he's manipulating you," she insisted. "He's trying to come between us because he can't let you go. This is exactly why I said we needed boundaries." Ryan shrugged her hand off. "Stop," he said. "Just stop talking for a minute." He looked up at me, his eyes conflicted. "Did you really sell our house?" I nodded. "The paperwork is being processed right now. The money will be in my account tomorrow. And there's no way to undo the wedding cancellations?" "Not at this point," I confirmed. "Everything has been canceled for over 6 hours now. The venue is already booking another event." Ryan put his head in his hands. After a long moment, he stood up. "I need time to think," he said. "Jessica, I'll drive you home, and then I need to be alone." Jessica's composure completely shattered. "What do you mean, alone? We're supposed to be getting married tomorrow. We need to fix this." "There's nothing to fix," Ryan replied, his voice hollow. "The wedding is canceled. Our house is sold. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do about the fact that my fiancé told my father he didn't belong in our family." "Ryan, please." Jessica grabbed his arm, tears finally springing to her eyes. "I love you. I did this for us, for our future." Ryan gently removed her hand. "I'll drive you home," he repeated. "Dad, I don't know what to say right now." "You don't need to say anything," I told him. "Take the time you need." As they left, Jessica threw one last venomous look over her shoulder at me. I knew this wasn't over, but for the first time in months, I felt like I had taken back control of my own life. I had refused to be a victim, to quietly disappear as instructed. Whatever happened next, at least I had stood up for myself. 3 days passed with no word from Ryan. I tried to keep busy, picking up extra work and spending long hours at job sites. On the 4th day, as I was driving home from work, my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Can I come over?" he asked, his voice subdued. "Of course," I replied. "I'm about 20 minutes from home." When I pulled into my driveway, Ryan's car was already there. He was sitting on my front steps, looking exhausted. His hair was uncombed, and he had several days of stubble on his face. "Hey, Dad," he said as I approached. "Hey, son," I answered, unlocking the door. "Come on in." We sat in the living room, the same room where our confrontation had happened days earlier. Ryan looked around, his eyes landing on the photos of us I kept on the walls. "Jessica and I broke up," he said finally. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "After I dropped her off that day, I went to a hotel. I needed to think. Then her parents started calling, and her friends. Everyone wanted to know why the wedding was canceled, what was happening with the house. It was chaos." He ran a hand through his hair. "I kept listening to the recording you sent me, over and over, hearing how she talked to you when I wasn't around. I couldn't believe it. But then I started thinking about all the little comments she would make about you, how she would roll her eyes when your name came up, how she would reschedule our Sunday dinners, or find excuses for why I couldn't meet you for lunch." Ryan looked at me directly. I confronted her the next day. I asked her straight out if she had been trying to separate me from you. And Dad, his voice broke. She didn't even deny it. She said it was for my own good, that I would never advance in my career with such strong ties to my, quote, blue-collar past. She actually said that, like being your son, was something I needed to overcome. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also deep sadness for my son's pain. "I'm sorry, Ryan," I said sincerely. "I know you loved her." "I thought I did," he replied. "But now I wonder if I ever really knew her. The woman I fell in love with was kind and caring, or at least she seemed that way. Now, I don't know what was real and what was an act. We sat in silence for a moment before Ryan spoke again. Did you really sell the house? I nodded. The sale closed yesterday. The money is in my account. Ryan sighed deeply. I guess I deserved that, after how I've treated you these past months. It wasn't about punishing you, I clarified. It was about refusing to be erased from my own son's life, about standing up for myself after months of being slowly pushed aside. I understand that now, Ryan said. I just wish I had seen what was happening sooner. I wish I had defended you when Jessica started making those little comments. I was so wrapped up in her, in the life she was painting for us, that I let myself be pulled away from the most important relationship in my life. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. Can you forgive me, Dad? The question hung in the air between us. Could I forgive him? The hurt was still fresh, the memory of his dismissive tone on the phone still painful. But sitting across from me was not just my adult son, but the little boy I had raised alone, the child who had cried on my shoulder after nightmares, the teenager who had helped me build our deck one summer, the young man who had hugged me fiercely at his college graduation. I forgive you, I said finally. But things can't go back to how they were before. We need to rebuild, to find a new way forward. Ryan nodded, relief washing over his face. I know. And I want to do that work. I want to make things right between us. What about Jessica? I asked. She's not going to just disappear. Ryan's expression hardened. She's been calling and texting constantly. Her father even threatened to have me fired from my firm. But I've made myself clear. It's over. And how do you feel about that? He considered the question seriously. Sad, angry, relieved in some ways. I keep thinking about who I was becoming with her, how easily I let myself be manipulated into pushing you away. That's not who I want to be. Our conversation continued late into the night. Ryan told me about the aftermath of the canceled wedding, the embarrassment of explaining to guests, the shock of learning the house had been sold. I shared more details about the months of subtle exclusion I had endured, the pain of watching my son drift away. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. By the time Ryan left that night, something had shifted between us. The break wasn't fully healed, but the healing had begun. The next day, Ryan called with news. Jessica's parents are furious about the house. They're talking about suing you. They can try, I replied calmly. But Thomas has all the paperwork showing I was the legal owner. The sale was completely legitimate. What about the money? Ryan asked. From the sale? That's something I wanted to discuss with you, I said. I don't need it. I was planning to give it to you and Jessica as a wedding gift anyway. Once things settle down, I want you to have it, to start fresh. There was a pause before Ryan responded, his voice thick with emotion. Thanks, Dad, but I don't know if I can accept it. Not after everything that's happened. Think about it, I suggested. The money is yours when you're ready. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I cautiously rebuilt our relationship. We started having dinner together once a week. He helped me with a bathroom renovation I was doing for a client. Slowly, the easy companionship we had always shared began to return, though changed by what we had experienced. Jessica made a few more attempts to contact Ryan, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. When those didn't work, her father called Ryan's boss, trying to cause problems at work. Fortunately, Ryan's position was secure enough that the attempt backfired, making the Blackwoods look vindictive and petty. Eventually, Jessica gave up. Ryan heard through mutual friends that she had moved back to California to work for her father's company. The engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond that had cost Ryan 3 months' salary, was returned via courier with no note. One evening, about 2 months after the canceled wedding, Ryan asked me a question that caught me off guard. Dad, what did you leave in the house? Before you sold it? I looked at him, surprised. You didn't find it? Ryan shook his head. I never went back after our confrontation. I had Jessica's parents pack up our things. What was it? I smiled slightly. a letter, and a wooden box. What did the letter say? I had to think for a moment to recall the exact words I had written in that emotional state. It said that despite everything, you were still my son, and I would always love you. That sometimes loving someone means standing up for yourself, even when it's painful. That I hoped someday you would understand why I had to do what I did. Ryan's eyes grew moist. And the box? What was in it? Your mother's wedding ring, I said softly. And her last letter to you. The one she wrote when she knew she wouldn't see you grow up. I've been saving them for when you found the right person to share your life with. Someone who would love all of you, including your past and your family. Ryan was openly crying now. I never saw them. The Blackwoods must have found them. I nodded, feeling a pang of loss. I'm sorry. I should have given them to you directly. No, Ryan said firmly. You left them where they were supposed to be, in the home you helped create for me. It's not your fault I wasn't there to find them. That night marked another step in our healing process. Ryan had lost something precious, but in acknowledging that loss, we both recognized what we had nearly lost permanently: each other. A month later, I made a decision that surprised even me. For years, Maria had talked about visiting Italy, the country her grandparents had emigrated from. We had always planned to go together when we retired, but cancer had stolen that dream. Now, with the money from the house sale sitting untouched in my account, I decided it was time to fulfill that dream for both of us. I'm going to Italy, I told Ryan over dinner one night. For 3 months, maybe longer. Ryan looked up from his pasta, surprised. Italy? That's unexpected. Your mother always wanted to go, I explained, and I need some distance. Some new perspective. Ryan studied me thoughtfully. You've never taken a vacation longer than a week in your entire life. I know, I admitted. But things have changed. I'm 67 years old. If not now, when? To my surprise, Ryan supported the idea enthusiastically. He helped me research places to stay, areas to visit, even downloaded translation apps onto my phone. As the departure date approached, I found myself feeling something I hadn't felt in years: excitement about the future. Are you sure you'll be okay with me gone so long? I asked Ryan the night before my flight. He smiled. I'll miss you, but this is important. Mom would want you to go. And honestly, Dad, I think some time away will be good for you, for both of us. The next morning, Ryan drove me to the airport. As we said goodbye at security, he hugged me tightly. I love you, Dad, he said. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was too blind to see what was happening. I'll always be your father, I replied simply. That doesn't change, no matter what. Italy was everything Maria and I had dreamed it would be, and more. I started in Rome, marveling at the ancient ruins and Renaissance art. Then I traveled to Florence, Venice, and finally to the small coastal town of Positano. Something about the colorful buildings cascading down to the sea captivated me, and I decided to stay longer than planned. I rented a small apartment with a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean. Each morning, I would wake with the sun, make a strong espresso, and sit watching fishing boats head out to sea. For the first time in decades, I had no responsibilities, no one depending on me. The freedom was both terrifying and exhilarating. Ryan and I spoke weekly via video calls. I showed him the sites I had visited, and he kept me updated on his life back home. He had moved into a smaller apartment, started therapy to process the relationship with Jessica, and was focusing on his career. How are you really doing, Dad? He asked during one call, about 6 weeks into my trip. I thought about the question seriously. I'm doing well, I answered. Better than I expected. I'm meeting new people, learning a little Italian, eating too much pasta. I feel lighter somehow. You look happier, Ryan observed. More relaxed than I've seen you in years. He was right. The distance had given me perspective. The hurt of Jessica's betrayal and Ryan's temporary blindness was healing. In its place was a growing sense of possibility. During my 3rd month in Positano, I met Sophia, a 60-year-old widow who owned the cafe below my apartment. Born in Italy but educated in America, she moved fluidly between both languages and cultures. We began talking when I complimented her tiramisu, and soon I was helping her with small repairs around the cafe in exchange for morning coffee. "Why did you come to Italy alone?" she asked me one evening, as we shared a bottle of wine after closing. I told her about Maria, about Ryan, about Jessica and the canceled wedding. To my surprise, talking about it no longer brought a surge of pain. "So this trip is your escape?" Sophia asked. I considered her question. "It started that way," I admitted. "But now it feels like something else. Like a beginning rather than an ending." Sophia smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Italy has that effect on people. We remember here that life is for living, not just surviving." In my 4th month, I received an unexpected call from Ryan. His firm had offered him a promotion, overseeing an important new project. "That's wonderful," I said. "I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Dad," he replied, then hesitated. "But there's a catch. The project is in Boston. I'd have to relocate." "Boston's a great city," I encouraged him. "And it's a big opportunity." "But what about you?" he asked. "You'll be coming home soon, and I don't want to leave you alone after everything." In that moment, I realized something important. Ryan was still seeing me as he always had, as the father who needed to be considered in all his decisions. And while that came from a place of love, it was also limiting for both of us. "Ryan," I said gently, "take the job. I'll be fine. In fact, I'm thinking of extending my stay here." "Extending? For how long?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "But I'm not ready to leave. There's something about this place that feels right to me right now." There was a pause before Ryan responded. "Is this because of me moving? Because I can turn down the offer?" "No," I assured him. "This is about me finding something I didn't expect to find. A new chapter. You should do the same." After we hung up, I walked out onto my balcony and looked at the moonlight reflecting on the sea. For the first time since Maria died, I felt truly at peace with where I was and who I was. Not just a widower, not just Ryan's father, but Anthony Williams, a man with his own journey still unfolding. The next day, I called my friend Thomas back in the States. "I need some advice," I said, "about possibly staying in Italy longer term." Thomas listened as I explained my thoughts, my growing attachment to Positano, the sense of renewal I felt there. "Are you thinking of retiring there permanently?" he asked. "Maybe," I replied, "or at least spending part of each year here. There's an opportunity to invest in Sophia's cafe. She wants to expand, add a small bed and breakfast above it. My construction experience would be valuable." "And what about Ryan?" I smiled, though Thomas couldn't see it. "Ryan's taking a promotion in Boston. He's moving forward with his life, and so am I." Over the next few weeks, I had several conversations with Sophia about the potential partnership. She needed capital and renovation expertise. I had both. More importantly, we worked well together, her warmth and creativity balancing my practicality. "We could make something special here," she told me one evening, laying out her vision for the expanded cafe and guest rooms. Looking at the hand-drawn plans, I felt a surge of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just a business opportunity. It was a new purpose, a new challenge. When I called Ryan to tell him about the potential investment, his reaction surprised me. "That's amazing, Dad," he said enthusiastically. "It sounds perfect for you. You're not disappointed that I might not come home soon?" Ryan laughed softly. "Dad, home is wherever you make it. If Positano feels right to you now, then that's where you should be. We'll always be connected, no matter where we live." His words released something in me, a final worry that I was somehow abandoning my son by choosing this new path. In reality, we were both just growing into new versions of ourselves after the pain we had experienced. Before making my final decision, I received one last call from the States. It was from Harold Blackwood, Jessica's father. "Williams," he said curtly when I answered, "I want to discuss the items you left in the house." My heart skipped a beat. "You found the box and letter?" "Yes," he replied. "Jessica brought them to us after the movers discovered them. The ring appears to be quite valuable, despite its obvious age." I gripped the phone tighter. "That ring belonged to my late wife. It was meant for Ryan." There was a pause before Harold continued, his tone slightly softer. "I understand that now. Jessica read the letter, and, well, she was quite affected by it. More than I expected." "What do you mean?" Harold sighed. "My daughter can be difficult, ambitious to a fault, perhaps. But your letter made her realize the consequences of her actions in a way our lectures couldn't. She's been doing some serious reflection." I wasn't sure how to respond. After everything that had happened, Jessica's feelings weren't my primary concern. "The ring and letter belonged to Ryan," I said firmly. "I'd like them returned to him." "Of course," Harold agreed. "I'll have them sent to his new address in Boston. And Williams, for what it's worth, I apologize for how things unfolded. No father should be separated from his child that way." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, thinking about forgiveness and new beginnings. Jessica had caused immense pain, but perhaps she too was learning and growing from the experience. That wasn't for me to manage anymore. That evening, I called Sophia and told her I was ready to move forward with our partnership. As we toasted to our future plans, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had begun as the most painful rejection of my life had led me here, to this beautiful coastline, to new possibilities I never would have discovered otherwise. Sometimes the greatest gift isn't what someone takes from you, but what they inadvertently give you, the freedom to reinvent yourself. 1 year later, I stood at Boston's Logan International Airport, scanning the crowds for a familiar face. I had returned to America for the first time since leaving for Italy. My small suitcase contained gifts from Positano, olive oil from local groves, handmade ceramic mugs for Ryan's new apartment, and photos of the now thriving bed and breakfast Sophia and I had created together. When I spotted Ryan walking toward me, I was struck by how much he had changed. He looked more mature, more settled in himself. When we embraced, it felt different too. Equal somehow, man to man, rather than father to son. "Welcome back, Dad," he said, grinning. "Even if it is just for a visit." "Good to be back," I replied. Though I have to admit, I miss the Mediterranean views already. Ryan drove us through Boston, pointing out his favorite spots and the building where he worked. His apartment was in a converted industrial space, all exposed brick and high ceilings. It suited him, I thought. A perfect blend of history and modernity. That evening, over dinner, Ryan handed me a small velvet pouch. "The Blackwoods sent this a few months ago," he said. "I wanted to give it to you in person." Inside was Maria's wedding ring, the simple gold band with tiny diamonds that I had placed on her finger 39 years earlier. Seeing it again after believing it lost brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed to say. "I thought this was gone forever." Ryan nodded. "They also sent Mom's letter to me. I've read it so many times I practically know it by heart now. She would be so proud of the man you've become," I told him, "especially this past year." We spent the week exploring Boston together and talking about our new lives. Ryan had flourished in his position, earning the respect of his colleagues and bosses. He was dating casually but not seriously, taking time to understand himself better before committing to someone new. "What Jessica taught me," he said one evening as we walked along the harbor, "was that I need to know who I am first, to be solid in myself before I can truly be a partner to someone else." "That's wisdom," I acknowledged. "Hard-earned wisdom." On my last night in Boston, Ryan asked about my plans for the future. I told him about Sophia and me, how our business partnership had gradually evolved into something more personal. "Are you happy, Dad?" he asked directly. "Truly happy?" I thought about Positano, about waking up to the sound of waves, about working with my hands again, renovating the old building, about Sophia's laughter as we served customers together. "Yes," I answered honestly. I am. For the first time since your mother died, I feel like I'm living again, not just existing. Ryan smiled. Good. That's all I want for you. Before leaving for the airport the next morning, I gave Ryan one last gift, a small wooden box I had crafted myself. What is it? He asked, turning it over in his hands. Open it, I encouraged him. Inside was a key. To the guest cottage at the bed and breakfast, I explained. Your permanent reservation, whenever you want to use it. Sophia and I built it specifically with you in mind. Ryan's eyes widened. You built a cottage for me? In Italy? I nodded. Everyone needs a place where they belong, no questions asked. That's yours now, whether you use it once a year or once a decade. As we said goodbye at the airport, our embrace felt different from when I had arrived. There was a new understanding between us, a recognition of each other as whole people with separate but connected lives. I'll come visit in the spring, Ryan promised. I want to see this famous bed and breakfast that's keeping my father in Italy. And meet Sophia, I added with a smile. Especially meet Sophia, he agreed. On the flight back to Italy, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past 18 months. When Jessica had told me the greatest gift I could give would be disappearing from their family, she had unknowingly set me on a path to rediscover myself. By selling their house and canceling the wedding, I had not only stood up for my dignity, but inadvertently freed both Ryan and myself to find more authentic lives. What had seemed like an ending had become a beginning. The empty house I had left behind, with its letter and heirloom ring, had become a catalyst for healing rather than a final goodbye. Landing in Naples, I felt the familiar warmth of the Italian sun on my face. Sophia was waiting outside customs, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. Welcome home, Anthony, she said, embracing me. Home. Such a simple word, but so profound in its meaning. Home was no longer just a physical place or even a relationship. It was the feeling of being truly myself, undiminished and unafraid. As Sophia and I drove along the stunning Amalfi Coast toward Positano, I thought about the greatest lesson I had learned from this whole experience. Sometimes the most painful rejections lead us exactly where we need to be. Sometimes losing what we thought we needed gives us the chance to find what we truly deserve. Ryan is coming in the spring, I told Sophia as we neared our little cafe with its newly renovated rooms above. I can't wait to meet him, she replied, squeezing my hand. The cottage will be ready by then. I looked out at the glittering sea and the colorful buildings of Positano, nestled against the cliffs. Life had taken me on an unexpected detour, but for the first time in many years, I was exactly where I was meant to be. So that's my story, friends. From rejection to renewal, from pain to purpose. I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean freedom, and that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is the push you never knew you needed to find your true path. If you've ever faced rejection or betrayal, know that it doesn't define your story unless you let it. The ending isn't written yet. You can choose to stand tall, to rebuild, to discover new horizons you never imagined possible. What about you? Have you ever had a painful experience that ultimately led you somewhere better? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video so others can find hope in these words too. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes life's greatest redirections come disguised as its biggest disappointments. Until next time, this is Anthony, signing off from beautiful Positano, where my new story is just beginning.